Jump in, jump in, da, da, da. There is peace, there is joy, there are pleasures evermore at the river. At the river. You'll find love, you'll find grace when we come to see His face. At the river. Trust and believe. Trust and believe. Dance and be free. Dance and be free. Jump in. Trust and believe. Dance and be free. Jump in. Jump in. Bring your worries, bring your cares. You can leave your burdens there at the river. Get what you need. Trade your sorrows and your pain. There is freedom in His name at the river. Trust and believe. Dance and be free. Trust and believe. Dance and be free. You can be free. Jump in. The water's troubled. All you gotta do is step in, jump in, dive in. It's safe. The river, just jump in. You gotta jump in. The river, just jump in. Whatever you need, just jump in. The river, just jump in. If you need peace, river, just jump in. The river, just jump in. If you need your heart fixed, if you need your mind regulated, jump in. The river, just jump in. If you need joy, jump in. If you need peace, if you need love, jump in. Jump in. Jump in. Jump in. The river, just jump in. No, 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 no. Joy in the river. Come on down to the river. Joy in the river. What you need. Come on down to the river. Joy in the river. Come on down to the river.
Hey guys, it's your favorite family members of the River of Freedom Ministries, and we are here to talk to you about the capital campaign. We are knee deep and way into it right now, and we need your help. We normally don't lift an offering or anything like that, but we're asking that you guys partner with us as we help build the kingdom. We are trying to do something big and wonderful for the kingdom and for the community. So as you pour in, we're pouring it right back out. So there are plenty of ways to give. If given information will be on the screen here, and we are looking forward to all that you can do to help us out. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Deep Dive. I am Pastor Justin. This is, as always, Pastor Denisha, and we are so happy that you have taken some time out of your busy schedule and out of your evening to join us on tonight. As always, we ask you to like, share, subscribe, and also invite someone into Bible study. We are here, and as always, Thursday nights are for the Deep Dive Bible study, and as we always do, we get up in the water, deep in the water. So I'm excited, as always, in case you can't tell, and we are not only getting, but we are into the deep this month. So we've been chronicling being into the deep for the last, 3 weeks now? Yeah, so
week 3.
Yeah.
week 3 in this conversation. So, as you're liking, sharing, subscribing, tag some people in the chat. Let us know where you are watching from. Say hi, greet each other, all the things we do in this virtual sanctuary, virtual community here. And those of you who, if you were in person, you wouldn't want nobody touching the neighbor and all that kind of stuff. You lucked out, right? Because nobody knows you're watching it. But we love that you would that you watch. We're grateful that you're listening in. And as you're getting your Bibles, getting your notepads, let's get into this word. Let's get into Luke, the 5th chapter. We're going to read it again for context and understanding where our lesson is coming from. So Luke, the 5th chapter, verses 1 through 11. Hopefully by now you might be able to read and quote along with us because we've been reading it so much. But we're going to get into it. We're going to keep taking these pieces and exploring this and cracking it open and going deeper into it to see what God has to say to us. So, Luke, the 5th chapter, verses 1 through 11 in the easy-to-read version. It said, as Jesus stood beside Lake Galilee, a crowd of people pushed to get closer to him and to hear the teachings of God. Jesus saw 2 boats at the shore of the lake. The fishermen were washing their nets. Jesus got into the boat that belonged to Simon. He asked Simon to push off a little from the shore. Then he sat down in the boat and taught the people along the shore. Verse 4. When Jesus finished speaking, he said to Simon, take the boat into the deep water. If all of you will put your nets into the water, you will catch some fish. Simon said, Master, we worked hard all night trying to catch fish and caught nothing. But you say I should put the nets into the water, so I will. The fishermen put their nets into the water. Their nets were filled with so many fish that they began to break. Verse 7. They called to their friends in the other boats to come and help them. The friends came, and both boats were filled with so full of fish that they were almost sinking. Verses 8. The fishermen were all amazed at the many fish they caught. When Simon Peter saw this, he bowed down before Jesus and said, go away from me, Lord. I am a sinful man. Verse 10. James and John, the sons of Zebedee, were amazed too. James and John worked together with Simon. Jesus said to Simon, don't be afraid. From now on, your work will be to bring in people, not fish. The men brought their boats to the shore. They left everything and followed Jesus. So our conversation this month has been into the deep. The first week we talked about literally that reality of when Jesus gets in your boat, how he gives you instructions, how he can just sometimes commandeer the situation, right? But when he gets in your boat, miracles happen. When he gets in your situation, he can change your situation in ways that you couldn't without his presence, right? Last week our conversation was we out here, right? What happens and how we have to follow the instruction of Jesus. We can't just stay on the shore. We have to go further. And then after we've gone further, he challenges us to go even further. We talked about being in the depths of our relationship with Christ. Not only taking risk and going higher and taking different opportunities, but really going risky places in God. And sometimes what's at risk is other relationships, other ventures, other goals. But when we're trying to know Christ, Paul said it like this. He said, all of those things I count loss that I may know him. Right? So sometimes we have to take that risk of letting things and people go so we can win him, so we can attain him, so we can know him. Right. So this week our conversation in the deep is looking at verse 5, right? So let's go back to verse 5 in this chapter. We're going to read it in the New Living Translation at this part. Verse 5. So Luke, the 5th chapter, in verse 5, it says, Master, when Jesus said, throw your nets out, Peter says in verse 5, Master, Simon replied, we worked hard all last night and didn't catch a thing. But if you say so, I'll let the nets down again.
Mhm.
But if you say so,
You say so.
I'll let them down again. So
Mhm.
tonight's version or the chapter of this lesson is try it again. Somebody put that in the chat. Try it again.
Mhm.
Try it again. And this is such an important, human nature relatable part of the conversation, right? Peter is with his friends. They're Simon. They're working. They know this craft, and they have been fishing. And here comes Jesus, who
Mhm.
gets in the boat with them,
Right.
right? Gives them some instruction, tells them to go out deeper, and presents them with an opportunity.
Mhm.
Now, what I see in this is that it's an opportunity that's hidden in an obstacle,
Yeah.
right? The opportunity is hidden in an obstacle, and it requires obedience
Yeah.
to get the outcome. That was some good alliteration.
Yeah, that was really good. That's the teacher.
a
in you
lot of
coming out.
O's. So there was an opportunity.
Uh-huh.
Say that with us. And put it in the chat. There was an opportunity that was presented
Mhm.
in an obstacle,
Obstacle.
right?
Mhm.
But it looks like they can't do it. But it requires obedience to get the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Let that be a lesson to all of us. Even our obstacles, what looks like obstacles, are opportunities. If we will obey, we'll see the outcome.
Yeah, that's a formula right there.
It is. When your obstacles are in front of you, know it's an opportunity that if you would mix obedience with, you'd see an outcome.
Mm-hmm.
We already know what the outcome was. They got a lot of fish.
Right,
But let's
right.
pause for the moment and just talk about the obstacle.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about oppression. Let's talk about the things that can hinder and can make us really step back.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about a couple of questions. Like, what do you think it was like for them to work all night and not catch anything?
Frustrating and disappointing.
Frustrating and disappointing, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I thought about this question of what did it mean for their business,
Right.
their
Right.
livelihood,
Mm-hmm.
to not catch anything.
It was their livelihood. That was their occupation.
Yes, it
Yeah.
was their occupation to go fishing,
Mm-hmm.
to sell it, to do whatever, save some for their family to eat, whatever they
Mhm.
did. To fish all night and not catch anything had to be heartbreaking, had to be frustrating, had to be maddening, had to maybe be scary. Is this the first night they didn't catch anything?
Right.
Or maybe is this the 7th night they didn't catch
Mhm.
anything? And I'm using my Holy Ghost imagination here. What is it like to go back to your wife and kids and family members and say, we don't have anything today?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And when you think about our jobs and how much we depend on our jobs as income, like that's like us getting fired or laid off from our job.
Or us going to our job and saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, we don't have money to pay you."
Exactly.
Like after you worked all day.
After you work, you don't get any pay. That's right.
Yeah, we're sorry, but we don't.
Yep.
We can't pay you this one.
And I remember I was on the board of a school, and there was some shady stuff going on. We didn't know until after the fact that the man ended up actually going to prison. But we had to tell the teachers that there was no money to pay them. You talk about some agonizing, right? So what did this mean for Peter and the others
Right.
to have been working all night and not catch anything?
Right.
Right? So it's not like we can't just race right to try it again.
Right.
Right? I think we really got to sit and hold space for the reality of what happens when you've been trying and it didn't work.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to guess that wasn't the first time they probably didn't catch anything.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Now, I also know that if it's the first time you didn't catch anything, you probably have some hope. Like, okay, we'll try again tomorrow.
Right.
But if this was maybe a perpetual thing, it's kind of like people when they're looking for jobs.
Right.
You know, the first application you fill out and you don't get it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The second one, the third. Okay. About the 10th, you get a little weary, a little frustrated. About the 12th interview that you have and they say no, it breaks away at your confidence.
Yeah.
It starts to take an emotional toll on
Mhm.
you. And just like we can understand that in our own lives,
Right.
we can put ourselves in the text and understand what Simon and his friends probably felt in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And here comes this carpenter. Not another fisherman,
Mm-hmm.
right? A carpenter
Right.
giving them some instruction,
Mm-hmm.
right? So in the verse 5 that we read, it said Simon's telling him, we worked all night
Mm-hmm.
and we didn't catch a thing.
Right.
Not like we got these, we got about
More
5
these.
pounds of fish.
Right.
We really needed 500 pounds, but at least we got 5 pounds.
Mm.
Said we didn't catch a thing.
Nothing.
What happens when you get disappointed? Right? Disappointment is a real
Yeah, that's a real
thing. It's a real thing, and it's a trick of the enemy, right? Life is hard, life is difficult, life has challenges, and if we're not careful, those disappointments will disappoint us.
Right.
I was talking to someone earlier today, and the Lord had put the person in my, I dreamed about the person, so when I woke up after praying, I sent a message and said, how are you? What's going on? Well, just see this kind of, this blockage, what's happening?
Mm-hmm.
And the person said, I think, I've been feeling a block. And I said, what's going on with your connection with God? This very creative person, and the person felt blocked. And I said, what's going on with your connection with God? And they said, actually, I haven't really felt connected to God lately.
Mm-hmm.
And when I said, tell me a little more about that, the person said, I think I've just been feeling disappointed. And I say, yep, because disappointment will disappoint you,
Mm-hmm.
and it will disjoint you,
Yeah.
right? If you think about when you have a disjointed bone or you
Mhm.
throw your shoulder out of joint, it's not where it needs to be, which means other parts don't work. You can't access it. You watch a lot of wrestling, and
Mm-hmm.
what happens when they get dislocated, when something gets dislocated.
You know what though? Even in that thought, when you talk about dislocation or disjointing, not only is it separated and things are functioning, but there's a lot of pain.
Yeah.
involved.
Yeah.
So it's not just okay. This is I dislocated my shoulder and it's hanging,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just no. I'm in pain now,
Mm-hmm.
and I needed to, in order to get it reattached
Mm-hmm.
or to get it back into place, it's going to require even more pain,
Even more pain. Yeah.
and more discomfort.
Yeah.
And I have to, if that's what I really want,
Mm-hmm.
I have to actually pursue that,
Mm-hmm.
ask for the help,
Mm-hmm.
go after the help to actually get it so it gets back into position and it can start healing.
Yep. Yep. And so disappointments disappoint us.
Mhm.
There's an appointment that we have.
Right.
God has appointed us or
Mhm.
commanded us. We're going to get to that in just a moment. But God has appointed some things.
Mhm.
And we say yes, we get excited, we give our lives to Christ, we're ready to go. And then life starts happening, the enemy starts fighting us. Some things are just naturally occurring things.
Mhm.
Other things are satanic attacks and assaults. And if we're not careful, those disappointments will disappoint us. We will walk away from our appointment. We will walk away from our assigned place. Right? And then there'll be a whole bunch more pain.
Yeah.
Right? And if we're not careful, this reality of life happening and not having wins, we get disappointed. And Proverbs talks to us about what happens when we are disappointed. Proverbs, the 13th chapter and verse 12, he says, hope that is delayed makes you sad.
Mm-hmm.
But a wish that comes true fills you with joy. In some verses it says, hope deferred makes the heart sick.
Mm-hmm.
And I like both of those translations because when somebody talks about makes the heart sick, well, what does that mean? This one says it makes you sad.
Right.
Sometimes that sadness, the
Mm-hmm.
continuum, if you will, the sadness, then depression,
Yeah.
then despair, like all
Mhm.
those things that can continue to progress when we get disappointed. Like, so I was hoping this thing would happen
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't, and I was disappointed.
Right.
I was hoping we were going to get married and we didn't. And now I'm sad, I'm despairing. But when I have my expectation met,
Mm-hmm.
then I have joy.
Right.
And the sad part is we don't always get our expectations met.
Mm-hmm.
Simon is an example. He expected that when they went out fishing this night, it's time to go to
Mhm.
work. I'm leaving, I'm going to do what I got to do. Or I'm going to be out at sea for these next couple of days. I'm going
Mhm.
to fish. To be disappointed by catching nothing, you can only imagine what that did to him. Same thing it does to us. And as Proverbs tells us, when we continue to have hopes that are delayed or dashed, it makes our heart sick.
Right.
Right? But here come this carpenter. Here comes this carpenter that says, go out into the deep.
Mm-hmm.
Go out further than you've been before. Try again.
Mm-hmm.
Believe again. Hope again. Anybody feel the Holy Spirit pulling on your heart, telling you to pick that thing back up? I know you put it down, but pick it back up. Here at River of Freedom, one of our mission points is to have passion reignited. That reigniting of passion often sounds like, go back out there into the deep.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I even had situations in my life where I walked away and put some stuff down because of hurt and disappointment and other things. And I masked it by saying, I'm too busy anyway. I have other stuff to do.
Right.
I can work on this. I can work on that. And here come that carpenter. Pick that up again.
Right.
Let's try it again.
Mm-hmm.
Now, will we be like Peter? Or will we be like maybe other characters that we read about in the Bible and just other people that we know? He said, okay, if you say so, I will. Right? Why do we have to try again, right? Why do we have to go out deeper? Well, it's kind of easy. The deeper is where the fish are.
Right. Deeper is where your blessing is.
Deeper is where your blessing is.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you have to try it again? Remember, those obstacles are really opportunities for God to get the glory. And we talked about that last month around manifestation, that it's a situations happen so that the power of God can be made manifest or can be on display in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we are willing to try it again, then now we get this outcome, right? This outcome that comes from the authority of the carpenter. It's a fishing situation. It's a fishing occupation. And here comes a carpenter telling us how to do something, right? But when we walk in obedience, somebody put that in the chat, obedience, we get the outcome. Now, it's interesting because we've talked about this a lot these last couple of weeks, and let's lay into it a little bit more. The fish are out in the deep,
Right.
because that's where God commanded them to be.
Mm-hmm.
The reason we have to launch into the deep is because there is a commanded place that has commanded results.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody put that in the chat. There's a commanded place that has commanded results. So when Jesus says, go out into the deep, right? We said last week that he already told the school of fish to be where they needed to be.
Mm-hmm.
He already knew where the blessing was, and you got to go where it is. That's that obedience part again. The outcome that's on the other side of your obstacle is in your obedience to go further. to go further than you've ever gone before, to try harder than you've ever tried before, to stay committed in a way like you've never been committed before, to keep your promises like you've never kept them before, to keep your focus like you've never kept it before, to go into the deep, right? So when we say there's a commanded place, we're not going to read these scriptures tonight, but Psalms 133 tells us about that commanded place. When it says, oh, how good and pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity, right? It's like the oil that went from Aaron's head to his beard down to his skirts. It's like the dew that fell on Mount Hermon. And it says in Psalms 133 and 3, for there the Lord commanded the blessing. So not only at Mount Hermon, but in unity.
Right.
When we dwell together, when we're in community, when we are in unity, that's where the commanded blessing is. So if I'm over here by myself, wondering why God's not blessing me, because the commanded blessing is over there on Mount Hermon, or it's over there in the unity. It's in the community, right? We have to know where the commanded blessing is. So when Jesus said, go out into the deep, take it into the deeper water, that's where the commanded place was, and that's where the commanded results are. First Kings, there's another story. First Kings, we're going to say something?
Yeah, I was just thinking about something. You know, one of the things you said about the obedience. We talked about the disappointments and we talked about the obedience. In the he was disappointed because he kept trying and kept trying and kept trying. It wasn't working. But when he was obedient, he did the same thing.
Same thing.
But he wasn't in the right place.
Okay. Yeah.
He wasn't in the right place because obviously, if he's been fishing, he wasn't in the deep water. But what it makes me think about is maybe that we've been doing certain things, trying and trying and trying, and we're not going further. We're not actually going as far as we need to go, because the further we go, the deeper we go, that's where the actual blessing, that's where what we've been wanting and what we needed actually is. So I think it's a very, very interesting point to think about, that even though we did it a bunch of times, it took obedience from instruction, because we were doing it on our own. Because we knew how to do it, not because we were instructed on where to do it.
Yeah.
So following the instruction on where to do it, that blessing's already there. What you need is already there. So that you got disappointed because
you were in
the wrong place and you were doing what you knew to do. But God is challenging us. Jesus challenged them to do what they didn't know, to go where they didn't want to go, to go where they weren't necessarily familiar with. But he challenged them to go further, to go deeper, to go past where you were before, and follow my instruction, because just by being obedient and following my instruction, I'm making it easy for you. Matter of fact, I'm setting you for life.
Yeah.
Because when he said, when they talked about the boat was so full, think about how much money that was, how much food that was, how much sustainability that would have given their family with that, or even when they called their friends, how much that offered for them, which goes to show that even, and we've said this time and time again, that your obedience not only affects you, but affects all of those around you. And this is a perfect example of that, how his obedience blessed everybody around him.
Absolutely. And what you were sharing just caused me to also consider how God will send you back to a place you already were.
Right.
And you didn't have results.
Right.
But because he's now in the equation, you're going to have results.
Right.
We see that in the Old Testament so many times, where Abraham starts in the promised land, leaves, goes to Egypt, only for the children of Israel
Mhm.
to eventually get back to
Get
that
back.
starting place.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's not uncommon that God seemingly takes us in a circle,
Mm-hmm.
right, to bring us right back. But there's a thing that He's doing in the midst of it.
Right.
So they may have never been there. They may have not gone that far yet. Or maybe they were, which is also another act of obedience.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus, you trying to send me back to the same place it didn't work.
Right.
You want me to try this thing again?
Mm-hmm.
You want me to go back into that situation? I tried school before. I didn't
Right.
do well. I tried my own business before and it failed. I
Mhm.
bought a house before. We had to let it go. Whatever those things are, maybe God is sending you back into it again.
Mm-hmm.
Because this time you're going with His commandment.
With His commandment.
Right?
Yeah.
And remember again, the commanded place has commanded results.
Mm-hmm.
1 Kings 17 tells us again, there's a story of Elijah where it's a famine in the land. Elijah had been living at the brook,
Mhm.
one of the few places. And one of the things that often caused famine was drought.
Right.
So when there's no rain,
No
the
doubt.
rain doesn't fall on the crops. It's kind of like how our world is, where it's chicken wing shortages now,
Yeah.
and its gas is super high,
Mhm.
and we can't find toilet paper for reasonable prices. Right?
Right.
That's like the closest thing we can kind of think about,
Mhm.
as it relates to a drought or a famine, where you can't find the things that you normally have. So if it's not raining on the crops, there's no crops. There's no food to eat. If we, they didn't have running water and these elaborate sewer systems and things like that. If there's no rain, there's no water to eat with, cook with,
Mhm.
drink, bathe. But Elijah was at a brook where God allowed that brook to sustain him.
Right. Right.
And the birds, the ravens, brought him food in the morning and in the evening. But eventually that brook dried up.
Right.
And God says, go down to this city
Mhm.
because I have commanded a widow to take care of you.
Right.
There is a commanded result
Mhm.
at a commanded place. What if Elijah had said, no, I'm going to stay right here because this is where I've been getting all my food. The birds keep coming. The birds keep going. It's going to rain soon. Maybe the water will come back. He knew when the brook dried up that was no longer. That was the first place God sent him. Go over here. There's a brook and I'm going to let the ravens, I'm going to let them bring you things.
Right.
But then that dried up.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, now you got to go to the next place.
Right.
Because I have commanded a widow to take care of you.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us don't even realize that God has already commanded the people to do the things that you're waiting for them to do.
Yeah.
The answer you're praying for, the thing you're asking God to do, God has already commanded the people to do it. But if you don't follow the instruction,
Right.
if you don't obey the command to go deeper into that commanded place,
Right.
you're not going to get the results.
That's right. That's right.
Because commanded places have commanded results.
Yeah.
One more time, put that in the chat. Commanded places have commanded results.
Yeah.
For Simon, it was into the deep.
Mm-hmm.
For us, it's into the
It's
deep.
Into the deep.
Go further. That's where he has commanded the blessing.
Mm-hmm.
He's commanded the result. So if you choose not to, it's like on Mission Impossible, they would say your mission, if you choose to accept it, and they go on with it.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us get presented with the mission and we're like, no thank you. And then we sit back in our place. Back in the day, Bishop Pullen used to say, sitting on your stool or do nothing. We sitting over here wondering why our life is going the way that it's going. Frustrated with God, charging God falsely when he told you, take a risk. He told you, open that business, open that Etsy store, go back to school, go get that certification, go to Votech, go here, join this church, join this ministry. Walk away from that relationship.
Right.
Pursue that relationship. Whatever he told you to do, there was a commandment. And if you didn't do it, you can't be mad at him
Right.
for you not having the results you want to see in your life. Commanded places have commanded results.
Yeah.
So he says, go into the deep. Right? Now, the question I also want to ask is, how deep is your commitment? Right? There's that song, how deep is your love? How deep is your love? Are you willing to try again? Are you willing? Right? And the reality is, for many of us, we fear embarrassment.
Yeah.
And we don't want shame. And the world, there's a spirit of this age that is fostering that, where we say stuff like, move in silence. You know, move in silence. Don't tell nobody what you're doing. Just pop out on them one day. And really, while that seems like wisdom, it's really a spirit of fear. Because if I don't tell nobody I'm taking a chance,
Right.
then I don't have anybody checking to see if I failed or if I made it. I don't feel the pressure to have to succeed, because if I don't tell anybody I'm going back to school, they won't ask me what my grades are.
Right.
If I don't tell anybody I'm going back to school and I happen to fail this test, I don't have to worry about being embarrassed. I don't have to worry about any of that. That's really what's behind that.
Right.
And that is fueled by the enemy. Because we read in our very first week that those who put their trust in the Lord will not be put to shame.
That's right. That's what the word says.
Right? So if we are doing these things to try to prevent embarrassment, that is because we have not really trusted in the word of the Lord that says we won't be embarrassed.
Right.
Now, embarrassment is subjective, but we don't have time to get into all of that today anyway. Right? But we don't have to be ashamed
Right.
when it looks like it's not fair, it's not working, because remember, commanded places have commanded results.
Right.
I can only imagine what other people at the shore were thinking as they watched Peter and this boat keep going further.
Yeah.
Right? They probably did have some commentary. But what we do see is that Peter did not pay them any attention.
No, not at all.
Right? So how deep is your love? How willing are you to try again? The question I would ask you to consider is, what do you have to lose?
Right.
Yeah. It's not like Peter said, well, if I go deeper, I'm going to lose this fish that we already got on the shore.
Gotta get the fish back.
Because he told him, we ain't got nothing.
He ain't called a thing. So.
And that's so important to realize, that how the devil will try to make you feel like that so much is at risk to follow Christ.
Right.
You're going to lose so much. You're going to be embarrassed. People are not going to like you. You're going to lose friends. You're going to have to stop being fun. You're going to be a square. Like, whatever the thing is, he tries to balloon this up like you have so much to lose by following Jesus.
Right.
Now, Peter, you already are out here. You in the water.
Right, you're already out there.
You didn't catch anything. What's the worst that could happen?
And it really wasn't even an inconvenience when you think about it, because he already had the net. They were cleaning it. So it wasn't like he didn't have it. And you were, like you said, he's already in the water. He's already in his boat. Or it wasn't like he was sitting way,
like he was at home,
right,
and he had to go all the way
chilling.
down to the lake.
Right. Had to go to the lake and then had to wait for Jesus. Like, come on, Jesus, are you coming? No, he was already there. So, I mean, even to think about the context of that, it goes to show you that most of the time you're just doing what you regularly do. And he's only asking you to go a little further than what you're already doing. He's not even asking you to do something that's out of your scope.
Right.
It's something that he
didn't say go scuba diving.
Right.
He said put your net back out there.
Do what you already done.
Yeah.
But just do it over here.
Yep. In this other place. Yeah. So if you are feeling this pull and you also see how you feel afraid or you feel embarrassed or you feel disappointed, ask yourself, what do I have to lose? And some people might be like, I got a lot of stuff to lose. Okay.
Write it down.
Right? No, I don't want to lose money. I don't want to
Write
lose
it
friends.
down.
All right. Cool. I'll hear that. But let me ask you another question. What do you have to gain?
Yep.
You have a lot to lose. You have so much more to gain.
Yeah.
And this story tells us, it's evident that they brought in so much fish
Right.
that their nets broke.
Right.
Right? They brought in so much fish that their boat started sinking.
Mm-hmm.
So you always have more to gain than you have to lose when you're doing what God said do.
That's right.
Now, let's be honest. You are going to lose some things. We're not going to sit here and perp like there aren't things that you'll lose.
Right.
But Jesus said, whoever would lose his life for my sake will gain his life in this one and the life to come.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you're never going to give up more for God than God is going to give back to you.
Right.
So if you first think of like, okay, what else? What I got to lose?
Mm-hmm.
Great. If you are like, I got a lot to lose, then that means you are a prime candidate to gain even more. Because if God is asking you to do something that requires that loss, then you will always get back more than you lost.
Right.
Because God, the Bible says God is not a debtor to any man. He will not owe anybody. So if you gave him, even the Bible says when you give to the poor, you lend to the Lord.
Right.
Right? He's not a debtor to anybody.
That's right.
So if he's asking you to do it, how deep is your love? Are you willing to take the risk? Got one more question to ask you to consider. Can you believe when the instructions and the instructor don't seemingly make sense?
Yeah.
Right? I've been saying all night, the carpenter came up to the fisherman.
Right.
Now, someone might say those are both trades. Those are both, occupational positions, but they're drastically different. Jesus was the son of a carpenter. Joseph was a carpenter. Right. I have been around both places. I've seen furniture made. I've seen fishing. I've never made furniture, but I do remember like industrial arts and stuff like that back in the day when you still had to take that stuff. I've been in furniture factories. I love to watch certain craftsmanship like Amish furniture and things like that. And then my dad used to fish, so I've been out fishing quite a bit. Carpentry and fishing, they're not the same thing. I can understand why Peter was a little hesitant, and again, Simon was Peter, so I'm using those words interchangeably because Jesus officially changes his name later. But Simon says, we've been out here all night. And I feel like he's kind of trying to softly be like, dude, you don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
We are the professionals at this. We've been out here all night and haven't caught anything.
Right.
You are asking me, sir, you are bald.
Right.
You are asking me to do something that is not in our, and he could have been like, bruh, go work on some tables.
Right.
Go make some, door frames, work on some, you're a carpenter, go build a house.
Right.
If you know about fishing, then come tell. If I want to know about how to, build a boat,
right,
now I'm going to come talk to you. Right? What do you do when the instructions and the instructor don't seemingly make sense?
You don't really have a trust but the trust, really.
And a lot of us don't trust. A lot of us look at the facts and then conclude they don't know what they're talking about. Right? If we're not careful, we will let our reason, our intelligence, our intellect, whatever, talk us out of obedience.
Right.
right? We'll look at the obstacles. We won't see the opportunity, so we won't have obedience. And then by virtue of not being obedient, we won't see the outcome. But even in the moments when it doesn't look like it makes sense, that's why Isaiah says like this: my thoughts are not your thoughts.
Right.
My ways are not your ways.
Yeah.
As high as the heaven is above the earth, as high as the heavens are from the earth, that's how much higher
Right.
my thoughts are than yours. So yes, he's a carpenter. That's just his day job, though.
Right.
He's a carpenter by day, creator of the universe every other moment. Creator of the water that he's telling you to launch into.
Right.
Creator of the fish that he commands to jump into your nest. Creator of the water, the fish, the person, everything that is created. The Bible says all things were created by him and for him. So, yes, he might appear to be a carpenter, but what he's calling you to do is connected to his creator role.
Right.
So you're looking at the obstacles, and he looks how he has already created the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
There's always more than meets the eye when
Right.
Jesus is involved.
Mm-hmm.
So Peter says, I don't know why you want me to do this. You're right. You don't know
Right.
why he wants you to
Right.
do
That
this.
part.
You can't see what he sees.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where trusting God really comes into play. Because if we're only looking at what we see and what we know and what our history tells us and what our expertise tells us, we'll miss the God who sits outside of all of that,
Right.
what he's doing and what he's giving to us.
Mm-hmm.
There's always more than meets the eye when it comes to Jesus. So Peter says, you say that I should, so I will.
So I will.
You say that I should,
Mhm.
so I will. I love that so much. Who is the one that I'm trusting?
Right.
He said, but if you say
Mm-hmm.
we should, then I will. Last week's lesson, you talked about what Simon was probably hearing while
Right.
Jesus was teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really good point to consider. Why did Peter or why did Simon go ahead and take that advice?
Right.
Right? Anybody else might have said it. He might have disregarded it.
Right.
But he looked at Jesus and said, all right, now look, we've been doing this all night and caught nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But if you say it, I will. Now, your mama might tell you, you might let that one go. Your friends might tell you, might try and convince you to do something, you might not let that go. But if God tells you to do something, you got to know for sure enough that if he tells you to do it, he's the one that's got the power to back up whatever he's telling you to do. And Simon is a great role model for us. He
Yeah.
shows us when Jesus says do something,
Mm-hmm.
do it. Mary knew that too. In John 4, when there was the wedding at Cana and they had ran out of wine, and Mary, you know, she's the hostess or whatever she might have been doing, but she comes up to Jesus and said, they're out of wine.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus said, what that got to do with me? I'm here as a guest. I'm chilling. I didn't come. I'm not doing no miracles. I'm not running no revival. I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
And Mary looked at the servants and said, whatever he tell you to do, do it.
Mm-hmm.
And we say to you today, whatever he tells you to do, do it. And the servants, Jesus said, just go get them water pots.
Mm-hmm.
Fill them up. And in their obedience,
Right.
that's when he changed the water into wine. And it's so interesting because they not only got the water pots, they got the water pots that were used for non-drinking purposes.
Right.
So they didn't even get the good water.
Right.
Like he took something that was so nasty and vile,
Mm-hmm.
and when the captain of the wedding drank it, he said, "You saved the best for last." He took the worst, the pots that were for relieving yourself and
Right.
washing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
that water he turned into wine.
Right.
And they said, this is the best wine we've ever had, and you saved it for last.
Mm-hmm.
If Jesus is telling you to do something, do it.
Right.
So Peter had to reconcile. I know we've been out here all night, but if you say I should, nobody else could get this. Nobody else could get me to move like this. Nobody else could get me to respond like this. But if you tell me to do it, I will.
And then, you know, you gotta imagine that had to be. He had to think that there was something special about him because of all of the people. Because he said he got in the boat so he could teach all
those
all
people.
of the people. So you imagine he's in his boat and he's kind of chilling like, oh, he just got in my boat. Okay. And he's probably still just doing, but he's hearing everything and he's paying attention because why would all of these people follow him? Unless he was doing and saying something with some substance. And I'm sure he probably thought like, well, if he's telling me this, something's got to come of it. He's not just going to be talking because clearly these people that follow him, they followed him just like they were about to do and didn't know. But he followed, these people followed him. So if they followed him, I could follow an instruction.
And what you're lifting up causes me to consider how his willingness based on what he had already seen caused him to trust him, right? I see these people are pushing in. He's talking some good stuff. So if you say so, I will. And if we would look back at our own lives, we can already see God's fingerprints and footprints through our lives. We can already see where he has done the things. Even if we were calling him something. Something told me to call and I got that scholarship. Something told me to walk into that office and I got that job. Something told me, right? If you already look at where God has already been through your life, now that you hear him clearly telling you to do the next thing, you can trust, like Peter, if you say so, I will. Again, nobody else could get this off. But if you say so, I will. I hope in this moment that you are thinking about what God has already done. And decide if God is calling you deeper, if he's asking you to do this thing, if he says so, I know it's scary. I know it seems risky. I know it seems foolish even. But if he says so, let's watch what's about to happen. And so when we're willing to try again, there are results that we get, right? Just like in Simon's case, they got the results. I don't know what you're being asked to do, but I know when you launch into the deep and you trust him and you do it and try again, you're going to get the result. Because God has not run out of fish. Just because they hadn't caught any fish didn't mean that there were no more fish to be caught. You, as Pastor Justin's been saying, you just got to get into the right place. You got to get to that commanded place. Just because you don't have it right now doesn't mean that God has been exhausted of that resource. In fact, he can do it again and again and again. And one last scripture is just proof of that. We're going to go to 2 Corinthians, the first chapter. We're going to read the first 11 verses. 2 Corinthians, the first chapter, verses 1 through 8. And we're going to read in the Message Bible tonight. So it says, I, Paul, have been sent on a special mission by the Messiah, Jesus, planned by God himself. I write to God's congregation in Corinth and to believers all over Achaia province. May all the gifts and benefits that come from God our Father and the Master, Jesus Christ, be yours. Timothy, someone you know and trust, joins me in this greeting. Verse 3. All praise to God and the Father of our Master, Jesus the Messiah, Father of all mercy, God of all healing counsel. He comes alongside us when we go through hard times. And before you know it, He brings us alongside someone else who is going through hard times so that we can be there for that person just as God was there for us. That's so good. Can't get lost there because we're almost out of time. Verse 6 says, we have plenty of hard times that come from following the Messiah, but no more so than the good times of his healing comfort. We get a full measure of that too. When we suffer for Jesus, it works out for your healing and salvation. If we are treated well, given a helping hand and encouraging word, that also works for your benefits, spurring you on, face forward, unflinching. Your hard times are our hard times. When we see that you are willing to endure the hard times as to enjoy the good times, we know that you are going to make it. No doubt about it. We don't want you in the dark, friends, about how hard it was when all of this came down on us in Asia province. It was so bad, we didn't think we were going to make it. We felt like we'd been sent to death row. Anybody ever felt like that?
Jeez.
You didn't think you were going to make it out. You thought this is the end. Fred Sanford, you said, all right, this is the big one. I'm coming. I'm coming to see you, Elizabeth. He said, we thought it was all over for us. There's a song that said, when it looked as if it was over.
Yeah.
And he says, as it turned out, come on, somebody, it was the best thing that could have ever happened. Now, I do got to pause there. Here is Simon. It looks as if it's over.
Right.
We have toiled all night, caught nothing. But if you say so, I will. And he got so much fish, as Pastor said, that it set them up for the rest of their lives, that they could walk away from it. So Paul is saying the same thing. As it turned out, our hardships, those dark days when we thought we were never going to make it, it was the best thing that could have happened.
Yep.
Instead of trusting in our own strength or wits to get out of it, we were forced to trust God totally. Somebody put that in the chat. Trust God totally. Not a bad idea for someone who raises... I lost my place.
Yeah.
Not a bad idea since he's the God who raises the dead. So we were forced to trust God totally.
Right.
Not a bad idea since he's the God who raises the dead.
Yeah.
And he did it. Rescued us from certain doom. Somebody say that with me. And he did it.
Yeah.
He rescued us from certain doom. And this is where it gets good. And he'll do it again.
Yeah.
Rescuing us as many times as we need rescuing. You and your prayers are a part of the rescue operation. I don't want you in the dark about that either. I can see your faces even now lifted up in praise for God's deliverance of us. A rescue in which your prayers played such a crucial part. So we got to back up again. It says, we were forced to trust God, and he rescued us. And he'll do it again. He will rescue us as many times as we need rescuing. Now, I love that so much because we talk about, are you willing to try it again? If you are willing to try it again, he will be right there in the moment of your effort. Right? And it says, and he rescued us as many times as we need rescuing. He will do it again. Every time he calls you out and you are obedient, he's going to do it again and again. Every time that you are obedient, he's going to do it. Every time he calls you further and you try again, he's going to be there.
That's right.
That's his word. Somebody put that in the chat. And he'll do it again. If you try again, he'll do it again.
Yeah.
If you try again, He'll do it again.
Yeah.
It may not always happen the same way, but he will always be there. Hebrews tells us he's the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. Another time he tells us he ever lives, right? So if he's not dying and he's always the same, he's the same God that commanded resources, that commanded blessings, that commanded people.
Right.
If you try it again, he'll meet you there again.
Right.
And hopefully you're hearing faith and you are being provoked to faith to try it again.
Right.
Peter said, nevertheless, or if you say so, at your word, I will.
Right.
So if you have a word from the Lord, it is time to try it again.
Yes. Try it again.
Try it again. Amen.
Amen.
Now I love this part because Paul says, God rescued us, and it was part of your prayers that rescued us.
Right.
Right? When you were praying, you were a part of the rescue operation. Some of us don't even understand what our prayers are doing for other people.
Right. Right.
So you know where I'm going with that, right? Prayer is every Saturday.
Every Saturday.
That's a great place to try it again.
Try it again.
To seek God again, to join your faith with other people for yourself and for others. Who knows who your prayers are rescuing?
That's right. That's right.
Right? Get up. Pray again. Because maybe you prayed before and you don't feel like the Lord answered you. Try it again. Maybe it didn't go the way you wanted it to. Don't stop praying.
Right.
Pray again. Right? And then join us this Sunday for the Wave. We are going to be in worship in person for the Wave. So Sundays, not Father's Day, because Sunday is Father's Day, but the Sunday after that, we'll be back. So we're celebrating fathers. We're celebrating all of the men of God, the men who have helped shape lives, whether you're a birth father, or a godfather, or a brother who's a stepfather, a bonus father. We celebrate you. So we'll see you on the 25th.
That's right.
Not this coming Sunday, the 19th. And we want you to join us again July 3rd. It is our celebration. July 3rd, we are going to celebrate what God is doing at River of Freedom. Make plans to attend. You can contact the church information at the phone number that's on the website or the email info@riverfreedom.com.
Right.
And of course, go to the website if you need anything. You can catch up on Bible class. You can give. If you want to contribute, if you want to partner with what we're doing here at the River financially through your prayer support, all of those things are on the website.
Yes.
And we will see you next Thursday for the last week. Is it 5 weeks or 4 weeks?
I think it's 5.
Oh, goodness. So the second to last week of this conversation of Into the Deep. And I promise you one last time, try it again. We'll see you next week.